The year is 1812. The place is the village of Sona. It's just outside of Paris. A brilliant strategist is preparing to invade Russia with over 600,000 men. He believes that this will be a walk in the park, a campaign that will solidify his legacy and bring him the riches and power he desires. But unbeknownst to him, there are those who are plotting his demise. These enemies come from within his own circle, jealous rivals seeking to tear down the great Napoleon. It's me. Welcome to my channel. And today, we're going to find out how the great Napoleon met his demise at Waterloo. Just a reminder before we get started, a new channel member was added last week. If you want to see your name here too, then consider joining our community. Okay, let's begin. As we all know, Napoleon didn't have an easy start to life, was born into poverty on the island of Corsica, and had very little opportunity given his humble beginnings. In fact, when Napoleon was just 13 years old, his father said to him, "You are ugly, you smell badly, you are awkward and stupid, you are the disgrace of the family." But despite these harsh words, Napoleon rose above his circumstances and became a successful military officer. His intelligence, ambition, and charisma made him stand out from the crowd, and soon enough he caught the eye of the French people and became a national hero. He seized power in a coup, took the title of first consul, and went undefeated in war. It seemed that nothing could stop him from becoming one of the most powerful men in the world. However, behind closed doors, Napoleon was hiding his true feelings of inadequacy. He was haunted by the childhood taunts and felt the need to prove himself to the world. This need for validation led him to become more and more ambitious, which ultimately led to his demise at Waterloo. You see, Napoleon's ego grew out of control. He believed that he was destined to be a great leader, but in reality he was just a man with a big head and an even bigger army. This led him to make decisions that were not well thought out, like invading Russia. On June 1812, Napoleon's Grande entered Russia and began his campaign to destroy the country. Despite this setback, Napoleon refused to give up. He launched another attack in 1813, hoping to finally defeat the Russians. This time, he was met with an even greater force. The Russians had joined forces with the Prussians, the Austrians, and the Swedes, and together they had created a grand coalition against Napoleon. At the Battle of Leipzig in October 1813, Napoleon's forces were defeated, and he was forced to flee once again. He arrived back in France in disgrace, his reputation as an invincible leader shattered. But even as his empire crumbled around him, Napoleon's ambition did not die. He wanted to reclaim his lost glory and take revenge on those who had defeated him. For the next 2 years, he plotted and schemed, gathering support and training new troops in secret. Finally, in 1815, he made his move. Napoleon escaped exile and returned to France. He wasted no time in rallying the troops and taking control of the country. Within weeks, he had defeated the royalist forces and restored himself to power. With France back under his control, Napoleon set his sights on revenge. He launched a series of lightning raids across Europe, defeating the Austrians and Prussians and forcing them to sign peace treaties favorable to France. But Napoleon's enemies were not done with him yet. They had called upon the British for help, and together they formed a seventh coalition. They marched on France, determined to finally put an end to Napoleon's reign. Napoleon was outnumbered, but he was not afraid. He had chosen the site of the battle himself, and he was confident in his ability to win. And now we arrive at the Battle of Waterloo, which took place on June 1815, near the village of Waterloo in present-day Belgium. Napoleon's army was made up of around 72,000 men, while the coalition force under the command of the Duke of Wellington and Gebhard, Lebrecht von Blücher, had around 90,000 soldiers. Napoleon was confident that he would win because he had chosen the site of the battle himself. He believed that the terrain favored his troops and that he could use it to his advantage. Fortunately, however, he had misjudged his enemy. Well, the fighting began. Napoleon's troops attacked the British and Prussian positions, but they were repelled time and again. As the battle raged, Napoleon grew increasingly frustrated. He realized that he had made a mistake in attacking such a strong force. But it was too late to turn back now. He had to fight or die. But unfortunately, Napoleon wasn't a great general anymore. His mind wasn't sharp like it once was, and his decision-making skills had deteriorated. Napoleon made several blunders during the battle that cost his troops dearly. For example, he delayed launching his main attack until late in the afternoon, which gave the British and Prussians time to prepare their defenses. He also failed to take advantage of the gaps in the enemy lines, which may have led to victory if exploited properly. As the day wore on, it became clear that Napoleon was losing the battle. His troops were exhausted, and the enemy reinforcements kept coming. As night fell, Napoleon retreated to his headquarters in Waterloo. He was defeated, but he was not ready to give up. Napoleon spent the night plotting his next move. He knew that he couldn't win a direct confrontation with the coalition forces, so he decided to try something different. The next morning, Napoleon gathered his remaining troops and launched a surprise attack on the Prussians. He hoped that he could break their lines and force them to retreat. But the attack failed, and his troops were once again beaten back. As the Prussians prepared to make their final assault on Napoleon's forces, the British came to their aid. They fought bravely and managed to hold off the Prussians long enough for the rest of the coalition forces to regroup. In the end, it was the British who delivered the fatal blow. Led by their commander, the Duke of Wellington, they charged into Napoleon's position and forced his troops to retreat. Napoleon was defeated. He had lost his last chance at glory, and his empire was finally over. Napoleon was captured and exiled to the remote island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic. There he spent his final years writing his memoirs and reflecting on his life. He died in exile on May 5, 1821, at the age of 51. So what can we learn from Napoleon's story? Well, for starters, never let your ego get the better of you. Napoleon was a brilliant military leader, but he let his ambition and desire for power cloud his judgment. He invaded Russia in the winter and attacked a superior force at Waterloo, which eventually led to his downfall. Secondly, never underestimate your enemies. Napoleon was known for his military genius, but he made some serious blunders in his later years. He didn't take out the Russians fast enough, which allowed them to regroup and form alliances against him. And he also underestimated the British and Prussian forces at Waterloo, which cost him the battle. Finally, remember that even the greatest leaders can fall. Napoleon was a legend in his own time, but he wasn't invincible. He made mistakes and paid the price for them. What do you think? What other historical events should we cover in this series? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time.